I slowed my rental car as I turned down Walnut Street, my gaze drawn once more to the little blue house on the corner. It sat empty as it had for over a decade, the yard overgrown and the windows boarded up haphazardly with weathered planks. But in my memory, that house still glowed with light and laughter. My younger brother Alan and little sister Amy had begged to tag along to our 10-year high school reunion. As we cruised the sleepy streets of our hometown, I was flooded with nostalgia from my small-town upbringing. My siblings chattered and pointed out landmarks from our childhoods, the corner store we bicycled to for penny candy, the shady park where we climbed trees and skinned our knees. But my eyes kept wandering back to 117 Walnut Street. The blue house hadn't changed, but I certainly had in the 15 years since that steamy summer I turned 18. Back when I was still Danny, the dreamer, lanky, and shy. Long before I became Dan, the family man, husband to a woman I adored and father of a bright-eyed toddler. That summer, I had my first taste of love and learned its bitter heartaches. Though much has dimmed with time, the blue house still stands crisp in my memory. I had just finished my junior year and landed my first real job at the lumberyard that summer. The work was grueling but honest, and I took pride in the muscle I was building in my formerly scrawny frame. Each evening, as I walked home, bone-tired to the small apartment I shared with my mom and siblings, I'd pass the blue house with the big front porch. When she was outside, tending her roses and herb garden that grew riotously around the porch posts, Eleanor Walsh would smile and wave. "Evening, Danny," she'd call warmly. I'd nod and smile back, marveling that she always remembered my name. Mrs. Walsh had to be at least 40, but she carried it well with her girlish freckles and trim figure. Her wavy auburn hair had only the faintest threads of silver. She wore it in a loose bun that often tumbled free as she worked. Though I still thought of girls my age as strange, unknowable creatures, I was drawn to Eleanor's easy confidence and the faint scent of lemon verbena that seemed to linger around her. Alan elbowed me from the back seat. "Earth to Dan. This was your stop, right?" We idled in front of the blue house, its sagging roof lines stark against the vivid evening sky. "Yeah, this was the one," I murmured. I stared at the abandoned property, remembering that long-ago summer at the threshold of my manhood. The trouble started when I began doing odd jobs around the neighborhood to earn extra cash. One sweltering Saturday, Eleanor called, asking if I could come move some boxes from her attic to the basement. Eager to seem manly and responsible, I readily agreed. When I arrived, I found her struggling to pull down the folding attic ladder. The sight of her shorts riding up as she stretched to reach gave me a strange, squirmy feeling I didn't understand. As I stepped forward to help, she stumbled backwards. Without thinking, I caught her in my arms. Stunned, we froze in that clumsy embrace. Eleanor gazed up at me, her pale eyes unreadable. Then she laughed nervously and thanked me, the faint flush on her cheeks matching the roses climbing the porch trellis. Things changed between us after that charged moment. A new energy crackled in the air when we talked, our eyes meeting often only to skitter away shyly. Then one evening, when I was finishing up a project repairing her back step, she invited me in for lemonade. In her cozy kitchen, we chatted easily about books and music and our dreams for the future as one might with an old friend. When I reluctantly made noises about heading home, she walked me to the door. Lingering on the threshold, Eleanor suddenly rose on her tiptoes and kissed me softly. Then she turned and hurried inside without a word, the screen door banging between us. I stood stunned, my fingers brushing my lips as though to confirm what had happened was real. I biked home in a daze, bursting with bewildered longing. Tossing and turning that night, I replayed that kiss in my mind and imagined all that I hoped might follow. So began weeks of stolen moments whenever we could manage them. I'd sneak over on my lunch break from work and we'd tumble into her flower-strewn bed, the heady scent of roses and her perfume filling my senses. Other times I'd tap furtively on her kitchen door late in the evening as shadows swallowed the street. We'd share wine and conversation in hushed voices before inevitably winding up entwined in each other's arms. I knew the gap in our ages should give me pause. But when we were alone together, wrapped in our bubble of bliss, none of that seemed to matter. Eleanor made me feel like a man desired, competent, worthy. and I think I made her feel beautiful and carefree in a way she hadn't for years. We kept our blossoming relationship secret, certain we were doing no one harm. Of course, such charades never last. It was a Tuesday when everything crumbled. I slipped off work early and headed for the Blue House, fairly floating with anticipation for the delights that awaited me there. As I hopped off my bike at the bottom of Eleanor's driveway, a dark sedan pulled in behind me. Assuming it was a guest for her book club, I darted up the side stairs to our usual discreet entrance. The kitchen door was unlocked as expected. I could hear Eleanor's melodic voice and a man's low tones conversing intensely. Figuring I could sneak past the living room to her bedroom unseen, I eased inside. Too late, I saw the suitcase gaping open on the table, half packed with the man's clothes. Eleanor's husband, Phil, had come home early from his business trip. They both froze as I stumbled into view, their shocked expressions mirrors of my own horror. "Danny?" Phil growled in disbelief. Crimson-faced, Eleanor began sputtering excuses about my fixing the back step. But we all knew there was no plausible reason for my presence. I felt my world crumbling as Phil's face contorted with rage. He lurched towards me, but Eleanor grabbed his arm as I fled. I ran until my lungs burned, my mind reeling in turmoil. All our beautiful castles built on lies and longing had crashed down in an instant. Eleanor's choice was clear: she would try to salvage her marriage and family. I was merely the foolish boy who had almost destroyed that. I wished desperately I could rewind to simpler times, before this affair swept me recklessly across lines I hadn't pondered. But innocence once lost could not be reclaimed. I avoided Walnut Street after that wretched day. Soon summer ended, and I gratefully escaped to college across the state. I tried dating girls my age, but struggled to forge true connections. Before long, I met my wife, Sarah. Her gentle goodness and warmth slowly thawed my frozen heart. We married after graduation and settled down in the suburbs. Only when returning to visit my hometown did bittersweet memories stir, as I'd catch a glimpse of blue from the corner of my eye. Sarah slipped her hand in mine now, jolting me back from the past. My brother and sister had wandered up the weedy driveway, peering at the abandoned property. "What a shame it's vacant," Amy mused. "Remember those beautiful roses that used to bloom everywhere?" "Wonder whatever happened to the lady who lived here," Alan added. "Mrs. Walsh? Was that her name?" I tensed, but kept my tone light. "Yeah, I think so. She was nice, kept to herself mostly." I turned my eyes from the sagging blue walls. "Well, we should probably get going or we'll miss our reservation." As we drove to meet my classmates, I shook off lingering ghosts. My boyhood infatuation was long gone, that heady summer affair relegated to memory. Sarah and my daughter were my world now. Still, seeing Eleanor's empty, dilapidated home sparked an unexpected pang of regret. I hoped she had found happiness again with her husband after putting her life back together once I disappeared. I said a silent prayer the Blue House might yet one day reopen its doors, reborn and glowing with light and laughter again. For hadn't we both once found joy within its walls, however fleeting? The naive dreamer still inside me liked to think that had to count for something, after all these years.